Hello, and welcome to the Your Creative Mind podcast. I'm your host, Izolda Trachtenberg. This weekend was my husband's birthday, and it's also snowpocalypse or snowmageddon or snowicane or whatever they're calling it right now in New York City and the surrounding area. So I'm at home today. It's beautiful out there, but I'm not going out in it. Oh no, thank you very much. But I wanted to talk about something we did earlier in the weekend that really relates to the whole idea of creativity and the mind and the brain, more importantly, the brain. So you know how I talk about the NIH did that study about how when people sing together, their heartbeats synchronize. And that's they've tested that. That actually happens when people are singing. I think it's in unison, but harmony could be there too. Their heartbeats synchronize. And also various really cool areas of the brain also light up. And the reason I know this is because I was listening to Dr. Charles Lim this weekend, who is a professor of, he's a doctor, he's an MD, but he's also a professor of otolaryngology and a neuroscientist and a head and neck surgeon. And he's the chief of the Division of Otology, Neurotology, and Skull-Based Surgery at the University of California, San Francisco. He's got all sorts of other things that go after his name, but yeah, you can tell that he knows his stuff. So why I'm talking about him is because on Saturday, we went to Lincoln Center and were audience members and also participants, because some of it was very audience participation kind of stuff, at Heartbeat, which Renee Fleming did a thing just a little while ago talking about singing and wellness, and which I love because I talk about that all the time. And this weekend, Dr. Charles Lim and Rufus Wainwright was there, and taiko drummers, and somebody doing chair Pilates accompanied by classical harp, and Chai Jam, which is classical Indian musicians that are also sort of fused with jazz, did improvisation. And then Dr. Lim talked about what was happening in their brain as they were jamming, as they were improvising, because they'd never played together before. So all sorts of going on. But the whole point of Heartbeat was to look at wellness and music and the brain and healing and depression and all sorts of other things, which I just absolutely freaking love. Because, again, I've been trumpeting this forever and ever, and now the science is finally here going, yes, that's exactly what's going on. You can use music and singing to alleviate symptoms of depression and isolation. And if you want to connect with someone, sing with them, because then your heartbeats will actually literally synchronize. How amazing is that? So why am I talking about this? Well, the weekend started out, we went to something called Soul Paint, and the question that they're asking is, where are you feeling? And it's this virtual reality experience. And actually, Rich went to the people who created it. They're out of the UK. He went to their talk. I did the jam session, but with Dr. Lim talking about what's going on with your brain. But what they're talking about is doing a VR session. You walk into this sort of, it looks like a cylinder, but it's curtained off. It's not metal or anything. And it's a curtained off cylinder. And you put on these VR goggles and you hold these VR hands, if you will. They're clickers, essentially. And they're asking you to identify where you're feeling, where in your body you're feeling what you're feeling, and also to put colors to it. And it's a little confusing for me. I didn't get as many colors as I painted on the final version of what I got, so I created my own based off of what they sent me. If you do that, if you get an opportunity to do it, though, it's really cool, because there's a voice that talks to you about where you're feeling and how you're feeling, and then you get to move around in this VR reality with an avatar of you standing in front of you that you can see and moves with you. It was amazing. And so you get to paint the colors and the patterns of what you're feeling and where you're feeling it. And then they ask you to talk about it a little bit. And for me, it was really interesting because the other people shared very deep, intense, like my father died and I just got broken up with my girlfriend or something like that. I was really thinking about where I'm feeling and where I create. Because, that's what I talk about all the time and think about all the time is creating and creativity. And so I said something about everything comes from my center, comes from my brain to the coccyx, to the base of the spine. And then it sort of it's going to radiate outward from that part of myself to my throat if I'm singing, and my hands if I'm making music a different way, or if I'm painting, or if I'm writing. It's all coming from my brain and my center, my spine. And that's why I talk about the chakras and things like that a lot. But the reason I'm talking about this is, first of all, Rich and I did that on Friday, and that was really amazing. But then on Saturday, we went to Lincoln Center. And everything started off with a performance by Rufus Wainwright. And if you've never heard Rufus Wainwright perform, go and do. And he finished with one of my favorite pieces of music in the world is Leonard Cohen's Hallelujah, which with Rufus Wainwright's incredible voice singing that song, it's magic. And then Dr. Lim came out and he was talking about what's going on in your brain when you're making music and what parts of your brain light up. Now, here's something interesting. He said that the speech parts of your brain light up even if you're making music, they light up even if you're not making verbal music. For example, even if you're not thinking about singing or doing the singing, if you're making music, especially and particularly if you're making music with other people, he was saying that it's a conversation, that these improvisers, later on we talked about that, the improvisers were having a conversation musically without words, but they were still conversing. And if he had hooked electrodes up to their brain, or with the little cups that I don't know what they're called, if he'd hooked that up to their brains, those parts, the speech parts, the communication parts of the brain would have lit up. And one of the things that he was talking about is, imagine all of the parts of your brain that have to light up and work in order for you to be able to sing a song. You have to have the verbal part to make the words. You have to have the parts that allow you to make melody. And you have to have the emotional part, because it turns out that part of singing doesn't just happen. That is crucial and critical to any time you make music. The emotional parts of the brain are going to light up. And the other part is memory. So all of these different things happen all at the same time if you're just singing a song. And then you add, with Rufus Wainwright, you added playing the piano. And he had just been on a cruise, working a cruise. And he said, I don't have my land legs back yet. So he was having some trouble and he forgot the words because everything apparently was and Dr. Lim diagnosed him on the spot and said, you have this thing where you haven't gotten your land legs back, which I thought was fascinating. But anyway, so in thinking about singing and thinking about creating, all of these different parts of your brain have to work together. And when you add making music to that with other people, even more parts of your brain are going to light up. And then he talked about people with memory issues like Alzheimer's and dementia patients. And he said, there is an explanation for why, and I've talked about this on the show. He said, here's what I've said. That when the Philosopher's Stones, for example, would go and perform at either retirement communities or assisted living communities, particularly in the memory wards, people who were no longer verbal would light up when we sang. And one of the most amazing things that I remember happening was this woman who had been nonverbal and basically in a state of catatonia for apparently 2 years. When we came in and we started singing Silent Night, not only did she open her eyes and wake up and look at us and listen to us sing, she joined in. Now, she was no longer verbal. She was no longer really conscious until she heard a song that she'd heard for decades. And it turned out she had been a professional singer and she had sung Silent Night. We found out from her daughter who happened to be there. And so how fascinating and amazing that people with issues like dementia, issues like Alzheimer's, who lose themselves can find themselves through song. Think about that. It's incredible. And when Dr. Lim was talking about it, I went, yeah, this is exactly what's happened so many times. I've watched people when we're doing these shows who are otherwise no longer really here, no longer really tethered to this particular reality, come back and have a little touchstone of Silent Night or Joy to the World or something. And when I sing in other languages, for example, if I'm singing in Spanish, same thing will happen. Or if I'm singing in Hebrew or Japanese, if the person knows songs in those languages, they will light up like crazy. And it's a way of communicating. And I've sung in places where the people don't speak the language I'm speaking in, but when I sing in their language, boom, all of a sudden we have a connection. All of a sudden there is no other thing that's necessary. And when I was doing on the college circuit, when I would go do my diversity programming and I would sing in 20 plus languages, and then I would invite the students to come up and share their song or their dance from their culture. It was magic. And Patricia Quintero Hall, she was the programming director for the colleges that always used to hire me for International Education Week to come and do these programs. I'm sending you, Patricia, I don't know if you listen to the show, but I'm sending you the hugest shout out and so much thank you and so much gratitude and love for doing that, because it gave me such gifts to be able to invite the students up. And sometimes I would play music for them, like I would accompany them on guitar if they had the sheet music or if we could find it on the internet. And sometimes they would just bring in their own dancing, their own songs, and they would share them with the other students. And what magic to be able to bring your culture like that, your singing, your song, your music, your dance, to students who otherwise would have never gotten a chance to hear them or to see them or to witness them. And so that's kind of what happened over the weekend. It revitalized, rebirthed my love for song and for music, and Dr. Lim played no small part. And I'm actually going to see if I can reach out to him and see if he'd be willing to be a guest on the show to talk about this, because it's something that fascinates me and something that I would love to explore further. And no, I'm not going to go back to school for this. I'm always going to be a creative mind person more than I am a creative brain person. But it's crucial to me that we have this conversation and we keep having this conversation, because I think we're going to keep learning more and more that people connect heart to heart, soul to soul, voice to voice when they sing or when they play music or when they read together. Rich and I do that. We read out loud to each other, because how wonderful to have someone's voice be what connects you to whatever was written. And it's not just audiobooks, which are great. I know no problem with audiobooks at all. But reading to each other live is, to me, a connection to ancient times when the village storyteller would sit around the bonfire late at night and tell stories of the origin of the people or of the berries you pick starting this week because the moon is high and the days are warm, and telling the children the history of their people. So when you get to read something like that, it was amazing. You know, that's an amazing and incredible and inspiring thing to do. And during COVID, I read my books. First, I read Pride and Prejudice, just went, you know what, I'm just going to read Pride and Prejudice out loud on Facebook Live. And then I read The Fiddler's Talisman out loud. And I started reading The Arbiter, which is a novel I've been working on forever that I need to really get my butt in gear and finish. But the point is that the voice is what connects us. And I don't know if I have anything else to say except for that. The voice connects us. Ta-da. Anyway, here I am. I hope that you've enjoyed today's episode. And if you are interested more in the work of Dr. Charles Lim, I think I'm going to put his bio page from the university's website in the show notes. And also I'm going to put my drawing that augments what I was able to create at Soul Paint. But yeah, and also maybe I'll put up a link to Heartbeat and to Soul Paint itself because they're so cool. And Heartbeat just happened, but I have a feeling they're going to do it again. This was the first one, and hopefully they'll do it next year. And yes, I will indeed be back every time they do it. And Soul Paint is traveling. So if you get an opportunity to check out Soul Paint and paint your own feelings where they are for you in this virtual reality exercise, event, activity, I'm not even sure how to describe it. Do it. Okay. This is Izolda Trachtenberg for the Your Creative Mind podcast, reminding you as always to be curious, be creative, and most of all, be kind. Thanks so much for joining me today. I really appreciate you being here. Please subscribe to the podcast if you're new, and it would mean the world to me if you told a friend about it. Today's episode was produced by Izolda Trachtenberg and is copyright 2025. As always, please remember this is for educational and entertainment purposes only. Past performance does not guarantee future results, although we can always hope.